All right, welcome to another episode of the Blunt Force Conservative Podcast. We're getting some pretty good reaction, getting some constructive criticism from some people as well. Hopefully, a lot of people realize that we're just getting started with this. Every podcast had a start, and unless you were some famous influencer or famous comedian like Joe Rogan, you probably started off with just a few followers here and there, and it builds over time. I do want to encourage people to follow this and to follow some others, and I'll talk about that in a moment. A little bit about me for those that are maybe the first time seeing this on X. My name's Chris Hinkle. I am a father. I have three boys, my wife and I do, and they are 29, 26, and 22. The two oldest ones are married, so we have beautiful daughters-in-law. And we're expecting our first grandchild, which will be a granddaughter here in September. Little inside baseball. With the last name of Hinkle, this will be the first female Hinkle born into this Hinkle family with that last name in 55 years. So since my baby sister, so she's carried that torch for a while, and little Sutton Grace Hinkle will be here sometime in September. My oldest and daughter-in-law are down in Florida right now, doing the first of two baby showers. And I've been working on a changing table, painting out in the garage. So that's where I'm taking up my time. My beautiful wife, Pam, we've been married for about 33 and a half years. It's at some point I may show a picture of her. I get a lot of people that say she looks like when we got married in '92, that she looks a lot like Kelly Kapowski from Saved by the Bell. She just still as pretty today as she was the day we got married. I want to give some shout outs real quick. And if Mr. Producer will pull up some of the pictures that I've got here. This lady right here had some of the greatest influence on my life as a conservative. That is Annabelle Nichols. I never knew her first name until until recently. She was my civics teacher at Tuscaloosa Junior High School, and she's the one that got me really interested in debate and talking about politics. It was during the time of Ford and Carter running for office. We had some spirited debates in the civics class about that. That can kind of tell you how old I am when it was Carter and Ford running. And one of the things that she did to challenge me was she assigned me a debate topic about marijuana legalization. And this is back in the 70s. And I wasn't then, and I'm not now, pro legalization of marijuana. I I've seen too much in my FBI career of how that kind of gateways into other things that people do. But she assigned me to be pro legalization of marijuana. So my mom and I went to the library there. There's a Freedman Library in Tuscaloosa. It's no longer there. There's the Battle Freedman home, but it was actually the Jemison home that was the Freedman Library. And we're looking through microfiche and pulling up all these articles and looking at the strange looks from the librarian of why are these people here looking for pro marijuana stuff? But we had the debate, and I won the debate, even though it was a topic that I wasn't supportive of. But she taught me how to debate. She also introduced me to reading the Constitution, the strict text of it, reading the Federalist Papers. It really laid a foundation for the things I did in my life. And I want to thank Miss Nichols for that. Unfortunately, she passed in 2011 at the age of 94. But if you look at this picture of Miss Nichols, that's the way everybody remembers her from Tuscaloosa Junior High School. I did get a chance to speak to her son that's in his 70s, and he gave me some insight on Miss Nichols. She was a staunch conservative. They didn't really talk a lot of politics in the home. He said she focused on reading, comprehension, speaking well. Those were the things that she pushed. But that's pretty much how I remember Miss Nichols. I want to give some shout outs to some people that I follow, and we'll try to do this each week to highlight some people that I've come in contact with. Some of them follow me, some of them don't, but that's fine. I'm interested. They pop up on my feed. The first one here that we want to give a shout out to, this is Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen Reports. He is honest pollster. Mark and I have become friends. We've texted each other and talked on the phone about things. Uh, we're still scratching our head as to why some of these large news agencies don't use him as their pollster, since he's been the most accurate and he's the most honest about it. Really like him a lot. The next I've got here is everybody knows Scott Adams from Dilbert. I don't think he follows me. I'd be surprised if he does or if he knows who I am. But I like listening to the way he looks at things, and I think he brings a great perspective through tragic events in his life. I don't know if everybody knows that he is suffering from cancer, and it's not looking good for him. So he's got the opportunity to be really, I would say, blunt, like me, to just say what he feels. You kind of, it reminds me of that song by Tim McGraw, Live Like You Were Dying. What would you do? And he's doing something that he enjoys. So I encourage you to listen in to his daily, which is, coffee, with Scott Adams. The next is this young lady right here, Becca. And the way I came across her was there's a few miscreants. I don't even want to give them a shout out that were attacking her. Some of them have attacked me online. I haven't been on X that long, but what I admire about Becca is that she's been fighting this fight in the child exploitation area, especially with this group 764. And that was those were some cases that I worked as an FBI agent, was dealing with child sexual abuse, child exploitation, and I commend her for what she's doing. She's somebody worth following. She's pretty good. Another that we've got here, and she follows me. I'm kind of curious. I want to get her on the show, and this is Stealth Medical. I don't really know her actual name. Looking at the picture there, kind of got that little bit of an Angelina Jolie look to her. I'm wondering if that's exactly what she looks like, but she's very candid, very blunt. I like that. She invited myself and a friend of mine, Kim George, who's running for state representative now out in Arizona. She did run for Congress at one point. And Stealth was nice enough that we were just listening in on a spaces that she had, and kind of requested to speak on the topic. They were interviewing Jim Verdi, who was Dan Bongino's producer, and myself and Kim George ended up getting invited up to speak, and we got a lot of questions from a lot of people, picked up a number of followers there. Really want to appreciate her giving us the opportunity to do that. As always, and Blaine, my guest coming up, knows these people, and that's the Conservative Voice. They've had me on their radio show up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Gary Heasley and Ada Nestor have gotten to be two really good friends of mine. They've helped connect me with some other people on X, where I've interviewed them, like Emerald Robinson. I really enjoy on their program. Really strong conservatives. Had Gary on the first episode of the Blunt Force Conservative podcast. Another is someone that people may recognize here, and that's Shipwreck Crew. Bill Shipley is a former assistant U.S. attorney, and he defended a lot of the J6 people, and a lot of them, I can tell you from my experience in the FBI. I do believe that they had their civil rights violated. I ran the civil rights program for the FBI in Mississippi when I transferred down here as a supervisor in 2006. Bill and we have some topics that we disagree on. I'm a proponent of, we've had enough of these judges and lawyers on the Supreme Court. Maybe it's time to just try a good old common sense American non-lawyer, non-judge on the court. And there's actually been 4 justices on the court that have not been judges or lawyers. It is not a requirement under the Constitution. And I think that the founding fathers set it up that way for good common sense people. But that will be a topic of one of our other podcasts. Another is a group that I recently came in touch with, and this Rhino Removal Project. They're based out of Texas. Had a chance to talk with Leo, who leads that group. I think they're worth the follow. I don't usually use that term rhino I just I kind of just stick to the facts. If anybody that listens to me or has heard me when I've guest hosted on the radio or been a guest on the radio or TV on Newsmax with my good friend Chris Salcedo, um, I just come from a constitutional perspective on that. I don't use a lot of pejoratives and name calling. And finally, the last shout out I want to give here is to Shell. Shell manages the Rob Manus show live. So the first time I came across her was listening in. Rob Manus is down here in Mississippi with me now. He's down on the coast. I'm in kind of central Mississippi in Madison, and I've been on Rob's show actually in the last month. Was on his podcast, his television show and streaming podcast. And I came across her while she was managing the spaces area of Rob's podcast, and just really impressed at how she took control of the room. I think that she is somebody that I would follow. I do follow. She follows me. She had me, I popped in just last night into one of the I saw that she was speaking somewhere, and I thought, okay, let me pop in and see what's going on. As soon as I popped in, she saw my name and she started introducing me to the group, and I was just there to listen, so I didn't talk. It was they were talking about a topic that really wasn't political or anything. So Mr. Producer, you can take that one off for right now. I want to start getting into my first guest here, which is my now good friend. I consider us good friends, and it's retired General Blaine Holt, Air Force guy like me. I was 13 years Air Force before I left to go to the FBI. I spent my first 8 years in the Air Force working with munitions, with explosives, and ended up um, going over to working as an Air Force Office of Special Investigations agent. I'm sure Blaine will understand that. So let's welcome in Blaine Holt in here. We're going to talk some politics. We're going to talk some current events. We're going to talk some foreign affairs. There's a picture of him with that bright one star on his cap. I won't use the term of what we called that cap when I first came into the Air Force in the 80s. It's not safe. It's not family friendly. But Blaine, welcome to the podcast. And I appreciate you coming on. How are things going today?
Oh, things are going great here in Northern Idaho, and congratulations on pushing off on this podcast, and I wish you every success with it.
Thank you. It's been a long time coming. As my brother-in-law who produces this thing will tell you, he has really pushed me to do this. It's been for a couple of years, and I just kind of reluctantly went into it. But when I saw some of the things that he was doing, it's amazing. Um, so I want to get into some things, and the first thing I want to do is talk about your partnership in Mr. Producer. If you can go back to my shared screen, I want to show a couple of things here. So that's Blaine's X page right there. So I encourage people to go out and follow him. Blaine spends a lot of time on Newsmax, Fox News. He's very much sought after, and he partners up with another good friend of ours, and that's Darren Gaub. Darren's a retired lieutenant colonel. He wasn't fortunate enough to be in the Air Force. So since Blaine, since you're a one-star general and he's a lieutenant colonel, out of the two of you, I know you work together on Restore Liberty, and I've had a lot of conversations with you. Which one of you would be Batman and which one would be Robin? Is it based on or
Darren might be listening to this, so I'm not even going to answer that question. I'll just say that he's a dear friend, and it was a pleasure to raise Restore Liberty at a time when the 2020 election was being stolen. We both are strategists by trade, and Darren and I came together and said, "Hey, let's try ourselves to put something together." And for 4 years, Restore Liberty was a good kind of organized opposition page against the usurpation of our Constitution, and that's what it was really all about. A lot of vets, a lot of civilians across the nation, and Darren and I do a lot of media together. We both write routinely. His Substack is something I'd commend to everybody because I'll write once a week, maybe once every other week, but Darren's got something up on that Substack page just about every 3 days.
Yeah, Darren's got the Montana Sentinel as well as a media outlet. He's published a couple of my articles there, and I was put in touch with the both of you through Rebecca Cheney over
Hmm.
here in Mississippi. She just highly recommended I speak with you, and I think the first one I spoke with was was Darren.
Yep.
Was it Darren or you? I
No,
had a
I think it was
long
Darren. I think it was Darren.
yeah, spoke with Darren for quite a while, kind of feeling each other out on our constitutional stuff. Um, I want to get right into some of the things that are going on right now. Are you connected at all, or do you interact with Rob Manus?
I know Rob. The last time I saw him in person was actually at Mar-a-Lago in the wintertime at the veterans event. He does a great job. I love his heart. I love his passion, and I think you're absolutely correct to commend his podcast. He's very good people.
He has got a radio voice. I can
Mhm.
that is that he it's very interesting. I was just on his podcast here recently. Um, the so Rob and Mr. Producer, if you'll put it up, here's something that was posted just today. Rob was talking about this is not one and done, you know, the B-2 bomber and how this might transpire with the bombing. I've got friends that deal with that worked in the area of doing the engineering of trying to figure out this. They did it during the war in Iraq of figuring out, you know, how, you know, the logistics, the mechanics, the engineering of, you know, penetration and things like that with bombs and all. So Rob was talking about that it may take more than just one hit from a B-2. I didn't really work with the B-2s in the Air Force. I came in when we were still testing the the B1, and you can take that down, Mr. Producer. I came in when we were testing the B1. I don't know if you had any time at Eglin Air Force Base. I remember the B1 being in the McKinley Climatic Lab
Hmm.
as it was being tested for cold. Once I got up to Ellsworth Air Force Base, South Dakota, I understood why they had to do that testing from the cold. My gosh.
Oh, sure.
So what are your tell me what people are asking you about, what your thoughts are on all this stuff going on with potential attacks over in Iran and the US involvement.
Yeah, it looks like we're inching closer and closer to the United States taking an active combat role in this war. I wrote a piece on Newsmax.com. I have a column there, and Newsmax gave me permission to write a long form piece. Normally, I'm around 800 words. This one's more about 2,100. But it gets in. My piece gets into the strategy of this and why we might take pause before we sign up for the notion that bombing with our B-2s and our weapons and our amazing capabilities is just absolutely an easy surgical, you get in, you get out, and nothing bad happens on our side. Certainly, I know the Air Force has given the president very good weapons estimates about what type of bomb damage assessment after the strike we can expect. But after you've done that, you've done it, and then it's messy. And that's what I'm hoping and encouraging the president's team to examine with him is the second and third order effects that come with strikes on these facilities with our bunker busting bombs that everybody seems to think is a panacea. It's not a panacea, and it doesn't mean that we shouldn't. It means that we need to weigh these things in the context of, well, is it tactically sufficient, and do we need to do this, or do the Israelis have this war well in hand, and can they achieve their objectives without us playing a combat role? So why would we try to avoid the combat role altogether? Well, the reason is because we've got three tiers of risks that will change after this strike. And I think we can say after the strike because I think we're on our way to doing it. And the three tiers are we have to watch how our risk sets change domestically. And what I write about there is we have had an open border for 4 years. Every single terror cell and state actor, including China and Russia, are represented in our nation under wraps right now. Tom Homan's doing God's work in expelling as many as he can. The FBI under Kash Patel is trying to find these sleeper cells, especially the ones directly connected to Hezbollah and Iran. But they're not going to get them all. There's no time to do that. So, do they have orders that after certain events happen in Iran to take certain activities in our country? Maybe so. That is something where Main Street is going to have to be resilient and prepared that foreign wars don't stay foreign anymore with today's technology. Next, global. Globally, all the capitals, friendly, adversarial, neutral, they're going to change. They're going to change their opinions of the United States, their assessments of the things that we'll do and not do. They're gonna wonder about the Trump doctrine given to us on Inauguration Day about trying to avoid wars and having a demilitarized foreign policy. And so that will it'll remain to be seen how those things shift, but we'll probably see opportunities we have now go away. We'll probably see new opportunities, but nevertheless, I would implore the president's team to investigate what that world looks like and model that world after the strike. The next thing, uh, political, and I'll put political slash economic. The world is already at the economic abyss. We are in a liquidity crisis right now that doesn't get reported ever because we're so enamored with these wars, and we probably should be. But we have a liquidity crisis. And is the potential stopping of the Straits of Hormuz going to throw that over the edge? Will markets freeze up in uncertainty because now the United States has entered the war? Does the war spiral and escalate? And do we go to a place called active World War III? We don't know. And then there's the politics. In DC, and I'll be very cynical here, I don't use the term rhino a whole lot either because I am firmly convinced that the swamp has no aisle. There is no aisle. That there are tribal factions. Most of them operate based on how their checkbook gets populated with money. And there will be those who have urged the president, the neocons, who have said, Iran is hours away from a nuclear weapon. We've got to move. We've got to do this. And if things don't go well, they won't be standing by the president after this is over. And there will be those who turn on him and they will go attack his agenda. In fact, I'm quite concerned that some of the so-called Republicans have hijacked this big, beautiful bill and will, like crybabies, stay in that status until they get their way and they start seeing B2s release ordinance. So there is a multitude of complexities that come. If it's just a simple case of a U.S. Air Force crew in a bomber drops the world's most advanced Earth penetrator, and that's all it is, well, that's simple. And I have absolute confidence in our bomber crews and the U.S. Air Force to get those missions done. That's not the problem. The problem is considering that President Trump, since his inauguration day, has been running all over the planet trying to stop wars and pull them back. I'm not sure a bomber tourniquet on the Iran problem fixes things.
Yeah, I'm really I see what you're seeing too with a lot of these people out there trying to jockey for a position where, and a lot of it, I think some of it has to do with ego. They want to seem relevant and important. You just had Mike Pompeo and Lindsey Graham go over there. Why are you guys getting involved in this? Why are you in this mess? Pompeo had his shot, and I think he needs to stay out of the way. The I don't want to see regime change. You and I both know from our time in the Air Force, And I think that a lot of citizens don't grasp how superior we are militarily compared to any other military on the face of the earth. The things that we can do, the capability, the destruction that we could put forth. I remember when it was shortly after I left Ellsworth Air Force Base. We demonstrated easily that the B-1s could take off from Ellsworth Air Force Base, never touch the ground, go over to the Middle East, do a bombing run, and come back. Never touch the ground. We have the ways to reach out and touch individuals like no other. Uh, and but the problem, like, I think you were alluding to, is what happens after. And I'm definitely not into regime change. We were sold a bill of goods by George W. Bush, who I am not a fan of as president. I didn't care for him. I did work his inauguration in 2001, but it wasn't too long before he started coming out with that compassionate conservatism stuff, that I kind of fell away from him. Uh, Trump is a different animal on this. I think he looks at it as, this is, I can't imagine him unless he was forced to put boots on the ground over there. And then you've got, and I'd be curious your thoughts on this. We've got some establishment Republicans out there that are so beholden to what uh, President Eisenhower warned us about with the military industrial complex, that they're looking at it from a, remuneration standpoint, from financial. Our own senator here in Mississippi, Roger Wicker, chair of the Senate Armed Services Committee, man, that guy won't even talk to citizens. He's just totally taken over by this military industrial complex. And that really became evident when when Hurricane Helene, the aftermath of that, and there was a lot of talk about pulling some funds back from Ukraine. And he talked, whoa, 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 wait, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. He was worried about it disrupting that. Um, what do you see right now from some of your people in your caliber, former generals, that I'm pretty confident. I don't know if you ever met him. I'm pretty sure you're not a fan of General Milley, but yeah. Uh, I don't know if you guys, go to the generals, summit each year or something, where everybody that's a
No,
one star
no, I
club
don't.
gets
I
a
don't attend balls like that. Sorry.
it's I try to tell people, once you get up into that echelon, you're kind of a unicorn in that area. Most of the people that get up to that high level of, once they start getting into O7s and above, it's really political. Um, I saw that when I was in the Air Force with Merrill McPeak when
Yep.
he took over. And you remember those horrific airline pilot uniforms that they tried to make us wear
Yeah.
for a while. And I really was impressed with Fogelman when he came in and took over
He's a
in the
mentor
Air
to
Force.
me. He is
Oh,
a
yeah.
dear friend and a mentor to me. He has been my whole career.
If you remember, he refused to wear the blues.
Yeah.
He just wears BDUs everywhere because he's like, I'm not wearing that crap. And as soon as we got McPeak out of there, he kind of took that over. But I want to get back to this. So, Mr. Producer, if you'll put my screen share up, I've got something here that I wanted to ask Blaine about. So we've got this guy, Alex Jones, and
Mhm.
I had heard of him. I'm not a huge fan, definitely not a fan right now. And I've called into question some of his antics online. So we've got right here where he is talking about his high level intel sources that are telling him about imminent attacks, military plans, and things like that. And I took a look at it, and you can go back to the picture of Blaine again, Mr. Producer. Um, I looked at it as, and I asked the question on here, and I got a lot of people reacting to it. Never got Alex Jones to react to it, but I said, okay, one of two things is happening right here. Let's say you do have high level intel sources. That means that they're leaking military intelligence and military plans to you, and you're taking the opportunity to put it out for public consumption online, which I know from my military time and my time in the FBI, you're putting our troops in danger by giving a heads up. So, or you don't have any intel sources. You're trying to stay relevant. You're looking for clicks. So what's your objective here? We have a number of these large follower accounts that are doing things like that, that are putting things out. High level intel sources are telling us this. Well, I have a problem with that. If you're actually getting leaked information, uh, you have a responsibility to not, you can't just use the First Amendment, freedom of the press, and all of that to obfuscate you from the responsibility of damage you can cause by putting that information out there. What are your thoughts on some of these people? And some of them are former military people that, fortunately, President Trump has taken a lot of their security clearances away. What are your thoughts on some of these large follower accounts that come out with this information? And you and I both know it's either a lie or it's a leak. Uh, what do you
Yeah.
think about?
So I on this one, it's this is the part of information war that I think the public is still pretty naive to, and then the other part of this is the hosts themselves, Alex Jones, others. I don't want to besmirch anybody's efforts to kind of be
Oh,
an
I'll
independent journalist,
besmirch. I think
but
he's.
but
I
but
don't
but
care.
to center back on him, he's kind of the guy who will get out in front of his skis. A lot of times, things that Alex Jones says will end up bearing out to actually be true. But when they get out in front of their skis, when they don't have second, third cross checks, validations, um, then okay, so you had an inside Pentagon source tell you something, but then you're still gonna have to go find out if what you were just told is true, because what'll happen is the intel community, counter intel community, psyops community, information warfare community will take a look at some of these large accounts, and they have narratives too, and they have stuff that they want to get out there, and it may not be true at all. And they're going after the host themselves, and what they want to do is discredit them. And so what they do is they fill their belly full of massive amounts of sexy information that can get people real interested real quick. And then when it turns out all to be lies, then they've destroyed the credibility of the host. They've wrecked their channel, and people just don't listen to them anymore. Or they're crafting a side narrative that they're spouting through this person because they know that who that person's demographic is and the audience that they're talking to. And this gets into shaping, this gets into information warfare. So I'm not so interested. I mean, look, if you violate your oath to the Constitution, then I think bad things should happen to you. I think you should be held accountable. But let's be quite honest with each other. The holding a leaker major in the Pentagon accountable is not nearly as interesting or impactful to me as holding a four-star general accountable for treason. So there's varying degrees here, but where these hosts get themselves into trouble, they have to be very suspicious that they're being shaped. And people will reach out to me because I'm a contributor on Newsmax, and they'll try to offer me information. And I don't just take information and then go become a little amplifier. If it's interesting to me, then what I'll do is go, huh, well, I'm going to put that in my little box called research. And I'm going to go try to see if there is some truth to this, not truth to this. I mean, there's tons of things that I have sitting here in my office that I'm like, no, I got to run that down. I'm not going to talk about it until I've run it down, find out its ground truth. And even after I've done that, is it important to and a service to be discussing this or talking about this? Do I help things with this? So back to my paper, which I'm shamelessly plugging. um, at the end, what I make sure I tell my readers is, don't mistake me. Yes, I have a voice of concern, some dissent. I think there's other ways to skin the cat here within the Trump doctrine and vision. However, I don't have a security clearance at the present moment because I did not prefer to take one into retirement with me, and I would not be an effective contributor if I had that being held over me. So I can't know the intelligence that the president sees every day. And if our president, who has worked for 6 straight months to keep us out of war and to demilitarize things and to find alternative solutions to the wars that he inherited, and he decides today it's in this nation's best interest to go drop bombs on Iranian nuclear facilities, well, then I'm all in. Then I'm all in because his credibility has, with his efforts and his doctrine, has got me to a place where I'm like, boss, if you find that this is the moment that you've got to reverse course and go after these folks militarily, well, then I'm gonna assume until proven otherwise that you have received the right intelligence and done diligence. I'm like you. I don't support regime change. The United States is 0 and 5 of that in recent years. We probably haven't really done it well since our founding. But I want to caveat regime change with I am all for the Iranian people taking this moment of weakness in the mullahs and taking things into their own hands. And we see evidence of that happening on the ground now in Iran. I'm actually setting up my ham radio equipment. I'm going to start to try to listen to some of the voices in Iran directly to see if there's some transmissions now that this thing is about a week old. But but these hosts, a lot of them get into these places where they're being manipulated, and they should realize that, and they have to be careful. And that said, look at the cost that Alex Jones has borne out. I think they use this contrived Sandy Hook stuff to draw defamation up, and they made it, and they tried to financially ruin him with lawfare on something that, when you take a step back and look at it, you're like, wow, wow. So he is saying things they don't like, and they're using lawfare to go after him. And I think it's a chilling tale. Look, the First Amendment's a messy thing, and I'd rather have be on the messier end of the First Amendment than somebody who thinks that they need to control what they call misinformation or malinformation or disinformation. I'd rather see us on the other end of the spectrum, which is, well, that person who identifies as a llama who's telling us about transgenderism, they're bat crap crazy. But if as long as they're not espousing violence, I will defend their right to be out there saying the nonsense and let the public decide.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I remember the stuff going on with Sandy Hook and him, and it did seem like a lot of piling on, and it was just the narrative of the day with a lot of the woke stuff that was happening. Um, as far as putting that information out there, um, when you sell yourself as some type of expert with sources, and I'll give some people some inside baseball from my experience handling informants inside the FBI. The best way to protect them is not to attribute the information that you get to them. You go out and you second and third source to it, so that you have a way to corroborate what they're saying that adds validity to what the informant has just told you, and you're able to protect the identity of that individual. You also have to take into account, and this is where I think that some of these people in the media need to take some responsibility of the damage that they can cause. You can't sell yourself as some type of intelligence expert, and if you're touting I have high level intel sources, that usually discounts things with me. I'd rather hear what you think, and you should be able to do it. If you're going to be, whether it's you're going to be an FBI agent or an investigative journalist, you've got to be able to protect your sources. And I think that sometimes he gets a little, like you said, out ahead of his skis. Um, so that's where I kind of counter him. What's your objective here? What are you doing? Why would you put this out there? Even people that aren't in the military, friends of mine, would look at it and go, why would he tell people this? If we're going to do this on Thursday, why would he give them a heads up? Um, I do think that you do have to trust Trump. He's got a track record of doing well with these things. I think one of his greatest assets from his first administration to this one is the way he handles foreign affairs. The stuff going on, and even with the attacks from the media about tariffs and how all of that played out, none of those things came to fruition. Now, getting back to Alex Jones, yes, he's been right on a number of things. I think you give him credit on that, but I also have to provide that constructive criticism when he's saying things out there that I think can cause some damage or they're just untrue. And if you say something that turns out not to be true, go back and just say, "Hey, I was wrong on it." I think you add more to your credibility that way. As far as the First Amendment, I know that you are a staunch defender of the Constitution. You and I both took an oath to swear to protect and defend that. I think that people need to exercise more of their constitutional rights. I'm out on the speaking stump, encouraging people to exercise that part of their First Amendment rights to petition and seek redress of grievances. That's one that too many people don't exercise.
Right.
But getting back to where you were talking about regime change, while I was just thinking of it, um, the problem that I think George W. Bush had, where they were looking at regime change in Iraq, and I spent some time over in Iraq. It was probably much later than you did over there. I went over there in 2009 as an interrogator in Camp Cropper Prison, interrogating. Mostly it was battlefield combatants. We had a couple of people that were tied to terrorists. A little backstory there. Actually had one of those. It was a brother of a terrorist cell leader up in northern part of Europe. And we were questioning him a number of times. And I learned from a young private that they found a shank on him. He was trying to sneak it into the interview booth with us to kill me, my partner, and our interpreter. We did get a reward from the commanding officer for that young private from the Army. I did chastise him a little bit. I said, "Dude, you should have let him bring it into the booth. That would have been fun." Uh, they would have been pouring that. They would have had to mop up some things from that guy. We did interview him several more times after that. He wouldn't talk to us, so we just brought him in, and you know, we just sat around. We ate pizza in front of him. We didn't give him any food or anything while he was, in there with us. Just kind of showing him that, hey, we can control your day right now.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little concerned when I got back from Iraq. I think it was several months after I left. We turned the prison back over, and this was the damage the Obama administration caused over there. I don't think we should have ever been in Iraq in the first place. But once you're there and you're there to clean the mess up, you got to do what you can do. And when I showed up in Baghdad, the first thing they showed me were the buses outside the prison, and they said, the Obama administration has deemed that we're going to start shutting. We're going to wind down. We're going to shut this thing down. So whether you're through interrogating these guys or not, 1,500 people are going to get on that bus every month, and they're going to be taken out and released. And then they're going to eventually turn the prison over, the high value detainee area where, Chemical Ali and those guys were held. We're going to turn that over to the Iraqis. And of course, right after they did that, there was a lot of escapes. And I was sitting in the McDonald's over here in Madison reading USA Today to kind of get the communist view on things. And I noticed that they had a list of individuals that had escaped the prison. And I recognized one of the names. It was the guy that wanted to sneak that shank in there, escaped from that prison and got out. Don't know whatever happened to him. He's more than welcome to come over here to Madison, Mississippi, and see if he can try his hand at what he was planning on doing. That won't end well for him. But as far as the regime change, you're right. It's 0-5. I haven't seen that work out anywhere. Benghazi, Afghanistan, Iraq, Vietnam, none of that happened. And I think that I hate to say arrogance of the way we feel about liberty and freedom, that we think that that's the exact same way that the local culture over there feels about it. And we found out that the Iraqi people didn't share the same types of love for freedom that we did. My concern is that might end up happening in Iran, which is what happens if we take that regime out? What fills it? What do you think about that, about this regime change thing, the mistakes that we've made in the past? And, what happens if we do destroy, that infrastructure over there? What fills it?
Well, again, what we should be doing is looking at the signs that a free Iranian people are emerging. There's a much made about the exiled crown prince Reza Pahlavi, who's already been in contact with many people on the ground. He's got officer defections, repledging their loyalty to him, going back into Iran to take a leadership role. And then, there's my tribe who has raised eyebrows on Reza Pahlavi, saying, okay, you want to go back in and establish a monarchy in Iran, that's your goal. I'm not sure we should be embracing you because you're basically a child of the World Economic Forum and you attend every year and you're the darling of the globalists. So not sure that works out. And those are just opinions. This is the thing. The the Iranian people truly have been locked down into a police state, tortured. Last year's little uprising led to 241 public executions in Tehran. And so this is a this is the Iranian people are an amazing people. They are an engineering culture. They have incredible senses of business, entrepreneurship, capitalism. They yearn for freedom. They love Western media and Western culture anytime they can get snippets of it. Um, but they've been smashed down by these extreme um, radical Shia sects that have hammered them. So, is it possible that organically, meaning by themselves, we'll see some leaders spring out of this while, and it's not reported, while women are taking their hijabs off, dancing in the streets. Men are dousing billboards with the Ayatollah's face on it with gasoline. Tehran police station 2 nights ago attacked by citizens. Is it possible that we're going to see an altogether different leader arise? And maybe that leader is going to be repugnant to the United States or the West. My advice in all cases, if I was in the National Security Council, would be turn off any access that the National Endowment for Democracy has to you. Let Iran sort out Iran. Israel is the one who decided to take up this banner for essentially good reasons, if you believe what the IAEA says. And so, let's see what emerges in Iran, and if there's going to be a free Iranian people that emerge out of this, well, then help them and bring them into the world community and set up Iran for success and get them on a path to this thing called the Abraham Accords. But if there's going to be regime change or not regime change, I don't like the debate because, if you say, well, we can't have regime change, and it's like, well, so what are you saying, that the Ayatollah is going to stay in there? All you're doing is spawning the next nuclear ambitions, and this time they're really going to go for it because they already found out what you would do. So, no, I think we bet on the Iranian people and we say, hey, look, if you're going to take back your government, if you're going to be self-governed, we're here to help. And if there's something that's repugnant to the United States and the West, I mean, look at Syria. Is anybody happy that Al Qaeda is running Syria right now? I'm certainly not. But do I support us going in with some Tiger team and knocking out al-Sharaa, formerly Jelani? No, I don't. I don't think that's our place to do. Israel might. It's their neighborhood, and they're the ones who wake up every morning with an existential crisis. But I think that we do far better if we get. I mean, look at the dollar right now. The dollar is crashing, and one of the reasons it's crashing is because it's been so overly abused as an instrument of compellence. A lot of, we talk about things going on in the Middle East because they draw a lot of camera time from the big networks. What people don't talk about is folks like Victoria Nuland, when they were in the State Department, now at the National Endowment for Democracy, going in and threatening countries like Sudan. If you don't play ball with us and expel the Russian naval base in your country, we're going to go ahead and destroy your currency. We'll call in all your paper. We'll watch you devolve into a chaos state, just like Somalia, and we threaten them that way. And so when you see things like that happen around the world, um, Americans who are adventurous and want to get out and they want to go see the world. Hey, I want to climb Mount Everest. Hey, I want to go see Victoria Falls in Africa. I want to go on a safari. A lot of them come back with this astonishment that we're not appreciated, that we're not liked. Well, guess what? This is why we're not liked. So the Trump doctrine, especially after being an officer of 27 years service who watched us get into every damn little war that never led to anything except it certainly boosted the stock price of the military industrial complex, and it certainly made the bankers wealthy on our backs, but we never got to a place of conflict closure. Nobody ever picked up the banner of strategy and said, well, what are we trying to achieve here? And then take the baby steps back to figure out what the strategy would be. Quite the opposite is true. You had those rocket geniuses in Wolfowitz and Bremer show up in Iraq, a war we didn't need to fight. You're absolutely correct. Um, go in and knock out the Ba'ath Party and create sectarian violence all over the place, create a deep-rooted hatred of the United States, only to have Obama show up later on and with his intelligence community spawn this thing called ISIS, which we now deal with. So um, the globalists, the intelligence community, they don't have a lot to show in terms of success for how they've managed the world. Going back to Dulles post World War II, with the founding of the CIA coming from OSS. This is the bunch that does the new global world order, the City of London, the World Economic Forum. Those are not tinfoil hat agencies when you talk about them. Those are real, domineering control freaks. It's almost a cult represented by the top wealth in the world that wants nothing more than theft, control, enslavement, depopulation, and repopulation. And so, if you think that those are terms that are tinfoil hatty type terms, it's in their own words. You can just go to their websites and look it up and read it for yourself. So I've lost my patience for people who will sit there and go, oh, you like to say the word globalist. It just rolls off your tongue so nice, but you don't really know what you're talking about. And it's like, okay, well, the Bilderberg agenda is right out there for you to go look at. You may as well go look at agenda item number 9, where they talk about depopulation. Why would they talk about that if that's not true? So I guess
Yeah,
the big thing is there's a retail narrative that we're always supposed to subscribe to, and it comes to you through the major networks. Thank goodness not Newsmax, where I contribute. And then you're spoon-fed that. And if you want to speak out against that, then some clown is going to say, well, that's disinformation, or you're a conspiracy theorist. You know who invented the term conspiracy theorist? Right after Kennedy was died, it was the CIA. So I think the
so
people are getting to the point where they've had quite enough.
so before we wrap up here, a lot of the way I look at things is the same thing with people, and I've had this discussion with you and Darren and others about being approached to run for office. That
Mhm.
usually it's, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
It's are you going to get in the fight? I, I have great confidence in the American people, the common man. I've spent some time, especially since retirement, just kind of sitting at different tables at events and luncheons and stuff, where I've just talked to people, and it's amazing how they have the similar concerns. Uh, I'm really, astounded sometimes when I sit and talk to my dad. He'll be 82 on the 4th of July. So you want to talk about an American family. My dad was born on the 4th of July in 1943. He's going to be 82. He can pretty much look at things, and he comes to the same conclusions that we do. And he barely got out of high school. So I think the common sense man is there. The thing that I've encouraged about what to do about it and is exercising that First Amendment right to petition, seek redress. If you see your elected representative, if you see him at church, ask him a question, not during the sermon. But if you see him at the grocery store, ask a question. If you see them in the ball fields, ask them a question. They're supposed to be accessible to you. Now, be civil, kind of know what you're talking about. I'm not a big fan of blindsiding them with something they weren't expecting. I usually will talk about the things that they've talked about or should know about. But ask them those questions. And if they won't talk to you, tell everybody. If they are, hateful to you, tell everybody. If they say things they agree with, you agree with them, tell everybody. I think that level of discourse here, and I've seen a number of our representatives that they're terrified of that because there's two things. I haven't found anybody to discount this. There's two things that every elected representative is terrified of. Number one's losing an election, and the second is being held accountable in a public place in front of other people. And I don't like when I see people shouting and screaming. I like to see just raise your hand and ask a question. And one of my bigger fears is the agenda of some of our elected representatives that they're beholden to that military industrial complex. They see it as an opportunity to fill their coffers, the coffers of, taking tax dollars and giving them to defense contractors. And I like defense contractors. They do some amazing things, but I don't think that they should be in charge of everything that we do in our government because they're looking at a bottom line. So when I see people like Lindsey Graham and Roger Wicker, and others in office, it's very clear what their agenda is, which is, hey, this is another opportunity for me to go market some U.S. tax dollars to give to a military contractor, and that contractor is going to turn around and donate to PACs and their campaign and hire people that like them. And I would bet, just about any amount of money that, Roger Wicker is going to retire here in the next few years. He won't, I don't think he'll stay until 2030. He'll be too old when his term ends, and he'll fall on the board of some military, consulting position. So that is my concern. I, like you, I don't know if I even still have my security clearance. When I left the FBI in 2019, they automatically extended it for 5 more years.
Mhm.
It's been more than 5 years since I retired now, so I don't think I have it. Just because you have that clearance, I think people think because you have the clearance that you have access to all kinds of information. You don't. There still has to be a demonstrated need to know to get access to it. But Blaine, before I let you go, tell more people where they can find you. I know I usually just flip on Newsmax, and usually it's you or Darren, and they're talking. And good, good for you guys. You guys get up at dark 30 to do some of those hits on
Yeah, my
news. But
Newsmax day normally starts about 2:30 in the morning local time here in Idaho. And if we have a week like we had last week, then it usually ends at about 9:30 at night in Idaho with the later shows. So it's something that I picked up and started doing um, as my reaction to the horrific events we saw happen in Kabul and the fall of Afghanistan. And I'm grateful and blessed for the microphone, the pen that they have given me, and the platform. If you want to read my stuff, please come to the Insiders page at newsmax.com. You can find my name, and the name of the page is The Irascible Disruptor. It doesn't mean I'm an angry man all the time. It means I'm very dissatisfied with the status quo. And I'm always urging us to ponder that. And I'll write there normally once a week or a little bit less than that. But you can subscribe and then you can find me always at my X account at the_irascible. And I'm always up for any kind of debate. And I really enjoyed our discussion today. I enjoyed getting some time with your audience, and I wish you well on your podcast.
hey, was the irascible? Was that your call sign in the Air Force?
I think that was more the nickname that the general staff had for me in my general officer's life because they were like, "Why are you always upset about stuff?" It's like because we're just doing it wrong. But no, Blano is the moniker and the call sign that was as fixed to me as a young T-38 instructor pilot. I made the mistake of telling them, "Hey, my name's not Blano, it's Blaine," and then boom, that's it, tattooed to my face. So later in my life, you just accept it. And later in my life, it was funny when I was the wing commander in Kyrgyzstan. My boss was General Petraeus, and if he called the headquarters, if he was looking for Colonel Holt, I knew I was in trouble. If he was looking for Blano, I knew it was going to be a great conversation.
Yeah, he's someone I've he's had some bumps in the road here and there.
We all have.
Really, yeah, really, yeah. I wouldn't keep classified information at my house in a drawer. That's probably not a good thing.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm going to go ahead and say that, and it's based on rank, and because I'm former Air Force as well. Lean into that you're Batman and Darren is Robin. Uh,
I'm not going
Darren,
there. Not going there.
Darren is a great guy. He and I, text each other. I've been doing some things to kind of get back in shape before the granddaughter is here. I've not met Darren in person. I think he said he's like 6'2" or six
Yeah, he's
foot or
about
something.
that. He's about that. He's a big old guy.
Uh, Says he's about 200 something pounds, and I'm probably with my shoes on, I'm 5'8", a little more, about 180. Reasonably strong for somebody at 61. And I can roll around on the mat. And when Darren was telling me about some of his exercises and stuff, I said, yeah, you'd be a chore. I never disclose what I can and can't do. I'm a big proponent. The best way to not get hurt in a fight is not fight. But if I have to, we'll handle that. Um, it's interesting, the people that have been brought into my circle. I'm so happy that you and Darren were brought in. Rebecca, I just cherish her for putting us in touch with each other. I
Yeah.
wish you well in all of your endeavors. I look forward to having you on here again, and thank
Right.
you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast. We're gonna cut that interview off right now, and I'm gonna have some parting thoughts, and then we'll move on from there. So again, thanks to Blaine Holt for coming on today on the podcast. I hope the people on X were able to see it and enjoy it. I haven't been able to take a look. I see that my good friend Kim George just popped up in the window right there. Follow Kim on X, and I wish her well in her endeavors running for State House over in Arizona. Uh, so today, my son, my oldest son, and if you think I'm conservative, whew, you ought to talk to Jake. But anyway, he and my daughter-in-law are down in Florida for the first of two baby showers. We've got our granddaughter coming here in September, so I want to wish them well there. Uh, I want to try to end some of these with telling a little bit about me. There was a young man, I think he's a child on the internet that or at least a youth, some immature person, was asking some questions about my background, not just being an FBI agent, um, or my time in the Air Force, but was probably scratching their head. I've got another friend of mine. I don't know if she's listening in right now, Mary Bustamante, and Mary and I did some battles with the leadership of Jim Comey in when we were inside the FBI, and we had a lot of times that we were really trying to fight some of the problems that the FBI faced, and we did it internally. But one of the things that people were questioning is how could somebody with such strict conservative values and Christian values ever have been a diversity and inclusion coordinator? So I want to give you this as the parting shot about how that came about. So prior to becoming the diversity inclusion coordinator, when it was just roaring hard under Jim Comey, uh, in the Jackson division, we had one of the diversity and inclusion coordinators at the time bring in an individual for Black History Month. That's fine. They want to, you're required to have so many celebratory events, or at least it was back then. And this guy that they brought in, man, he was just horrific. He was just talking about white supremacy and all kinds of things. And it really set some people off inside the FBI, and it really set off the special agent in charge at the time. And he started talking to me about taking over this program. And anyway, sorry if you're in the bark in the background. We're babysitting the grand dogs as well. So anyway, uh, anyway, I was it got to June with Pride Month, and one of the people that led the Pride, the LGBTQ type stuff, decided to put on an event in the office, a lunchtime event, and invited some gay and lesbian prominent figures from the local community in to speak. And one of the, uh, she was the girl that did it. I don't think she did it purposely, but she was responsible for providing lunch. And you've got these gay and lesbian individuals that are speaking, and the lunch she provided was foot-long hot dogs. And there was, I guess, that innuendo there from serving foot-long hot dogs. Even the people that were speaking there were kind of scratching their heads and like, what are you doing here? So after that, the special agent in charge approached me and said, we've had enough of this. We had this guy coming in that was really frustrating people with his views and pushing white supremacy, as this bad thing. It is a bad thing, but it just wasn't really an evident thing. And after the foot-long hot dog incident, he said, would you consider taking this over? I was in my senior years in the FBI, and they had asked me to do a few things, take on some other programs. He asked me if I could straighten that one out. So I looked at it, I prayed about it. I looked at it as an opportunity for me to get on the inside and find out what was going on with this diversity program, to kind of hear the agenda of individuals, what were the metrics and things like that. And it was worse than I thought. There were no metrics. It was pushing agenda. I started calling that into question with, with the leadership in the FBI. I challenged it. Discovered at one point that there was this unit chief from out in Clarksburg, West Virginia, that put up an unauthorized website inside the FBI system that was championing a lot of deviant behavior. And, some of that was with this thing called bears. And he was trying to say bears are these grown, hairy men that like the company, intimate company of children. And they called them cubs. It took about 3 or 4 weeks to get that thing taken down. I don't think anything negative ever really happened to him, but we did get the site taken down. The other thing I observed is I started jumping on a lot of these conference calls. There was a group inside the FBI that was looking to change the way that the FBI classified its evidence, its blood evidence. They didn't believe that you should just have XX or XY chromosomes to determine whether it was male or female in blood evidence. They wanted some way to say, they said that was wrong, and you should be able to take into account other genders. We countered that and got that taken down. I did file an EEO complaint at one point where at a diversity, it was a Pride Month celebration. I think Clapper was the speaker. I watched it through Civets, and I watched as someone from that community, an analyst from up in Washington field office, ridicule white Christian males. And I ended up filing an EEO complaint against that. And it went all the way up to an administrative judge before they dismissed it. I just couldn't win that one. So when people hear about me doing things like that, there's a reason that I did it. We were required to celebrate 3 events each year, each fiscal year. And the 3 events, I changed the way. I didn't do any more events that dealt with immutable characteristics. So the events that we celebrated were Veterans Day, National Day of Prayer, and Holocaust Remembrance. That was our 3. And we kept it that way the entire time until I retired from the FBI. So if you want to prejudge and think you know what you're talking about to this young child out there that was asking that question, I just hopefully, maybe have your parents explain that to you, that there's a reason that I did that. It was an opportunity to fight something from the inside. And I think I had some successes there. So that's it for our the Saturday episode of the Blunt Force Conservative Podcast. I thank you all for listening in. Please share it out there. We're going to try to do these at least every Saturday until it starts taking off. Follow us on YouTube on the channel that's linked there. Follow me on X and follow the people that I talked about. But thank you again so much for being here, and we will see you next time.